we have a new shill for you today. I want you all to meet Jason Lightfoot Jr.
It truly is absolutely stunning.
This is just simply amazing.
Everyone knows that China has the world's best infrastructure.
I mean, China's infrastructure.
Unlike in New York or the UK, where you have to faff about with a little bit of paper or a card that you have to top up every now and again, here you just use your phone or your palm, or even in some cities, your face.
No messing around. Like in the West, they're messing around, fumbling around with coins and notes and little tickets.
Especially compared to the UK's London Underground or New York City. Let's take a look at those.
Meanwhile, in America, it looks like this.
And today, we're going to watch this new Shill's video titled China has world's best subway, America jealous. Boy, I bet they are. Welcome to Shill Busters Reloaded.
Everyone knows that China has the world's best infrastructure. And being lucky enough to live in Shanghai myself, I get to experience this infrastructure every single day. One of the best parts about China's infrastructure is, of course, the subway system. Shanghai has the world's largest subway system by length of routes. It's also the second largest subway system in the world by number of stations.
Yeah, and New York has more stations. The New York subway system was also built about 90 years before the Shanghai one. So New Yorkers had the privilege of riding a little choo-choo train underground long before the people of Shanghai.
It's probably also the world's most cleanliest and efficient subway system.
Probably? Well, I'm probably the world's most handsome man, but until I get proof of that, then it's only conjecture, it's speculation, opinion, not a fact. There's some pretty clean subway stations in Taipei as well, and they're probably cleaner than the ones in Shanghai.
Today, I'm going to take you guys on an adventure looking at some of Shanghai's best subway stations, their newest and most modern ones, some of my favourites, and then we'll compare these to subway stations in other countries.
Oh, I can't wait to see that.
This atrium upstairs in the subway station is literally like an aircraft hangar.
No, it's literally like a subway station because that's what it is. A hangar is for planes, you silly Billy.
Especially compared to the UK's London Underground or New York City. Let's take a look at those.
Aha! The age-old editing trick of juxtaposing horrible clips with scary music. Okay, two can play at that little game.
So cool, isn't it? And to think that this is just a subway station, it really livens up the commute.
Watching a woman picking her nose or her mouth or whatever the hell she's doing, that really livens up the commute, doesn't it? That's exactly what I want to see on my daily commute. I'm pretty sure those Chinese people who take that subway every day, who are being worked to death, doing all of that overtime, sometimes 7 days a week, aren't exactly thinking about how this amazing, sterile-looking station livens up the commute.
This is the second subway station of the day, and this is Shanghai South Railway Station.
Rock-a-bye, baby, on the treetop.
Now, this isn't actually one of the newest subway stations in Shanghai. I want you guys to have a look at it and tell me how old you think this one is in the comments below.
Well, considering we all know that Shanghai Metro first started operations in 1994, then it can't be too old, right?
Shanghai South Railway Station, whilst it may not look as modern as Wuzhong Road, it's still pretty clean and still pretty nice. And that's despite the fact it is over 30 years old now. It's one of the oldest in Shanghai.
Wow, 30 years old? That's not old at all. I mean, I'm 42 for God's sakes. Is this guy trying to say that I'm old? Now, look at Earl's Court Tube Station in London. Now that's 152 years old, and it looks pretty damn good to me. That's a fine example of an old station.
Let's compare this with an older subway station in some other countries.
Okay, enough is enough. It's time to seriously expose this guy's video. I present to you Exhibit A. Please, ladies and gentlemen, have a look at the photo that he uses to support his case. It's a photo of a tube station that looks pretty awful, pretty derelict, run down and in a bad state, right? And it's everything one would expect to see from an abandoned station. Yep, that's right. This is a photo of an abandoned station on the London Underground. Look, here's an article about it in Britain's classiest newspaper, The Sun. Now, apparently, you can even hire this station to shoot some cool footage for your film. You know, the kind of film where you want to show a grimy old station, or maybe the kind of film where you want to push the CCP's soft power propaganda. And a quick search on Google will show you this station is no longer in use on the London Underground. And it also shows you that this dude is lying and using photos out of context to support his silly little narrative. And now I'm going to do something a little bit unorthodox, a little bit different. Instead of wasting my time watching any more of this guy's video, I'm going to stop right here, right now, because we all know exactly where he's going, and it's really, really, seriously not worth wasting our precious time watching it. This guy is a sloppy propagandist at best, and he's just like Jason Lightfoot. Everything he says and does is predictable, and there are about 1 million of these guys popping up all over the internet lately, and quite frankly, I'm sick to death of seeing them. I'll at least give him this though, because he does have a point about the London and New York subway systems being a little rough around the edges, and yes, sometimes people capture those interesting videos of crazy things happening on them. I'm not going to deny it, but you can say exactly the same for China too. I've seen loads of videos of crazy stuff happening on subway systems all around China. It does happen. So, as old as the London Underground is, it still functions pretty well for such an old, run-down subway system. The London Underground, or better known as the Tube, began operating in 1890. It's the oldest subway system in the world. It's historic. London has some really beautiful stations, and 77 of the 272 tube stations are actually listed buildings, which means they're of special architectural or historic interest, considered to be of national importance, and therefore worth protecting. So should we just rip them down? Just rip down all of these historic buildings and put in some new sterile, ugly looking crap in its place? I don't think so. And actually, thinking about it, London Underground does have some new shiny infrastructure as well. You see, it's a mix of the old and the new. For example, the Elizabeth line opened last year and is just as modern and just as shiny as anything China has to offer. That being said, China definitely has the advantage over the UK because they can just make everything new without having to tear down existing infrastructure because they didn't have that infrastructure already in place centuries ago. Like I've already said, London Underground is very old, and it still works very well today, albeit with some slight problems, delays here and there, but it was built to last, and it stood the test of time. How about that infrastructure in China? Is the infrastructure built to last? This is a serious question. Is China's infrastructure built to last? There's plenty of evidence to show that the answer to this question is no, it isn't. There are so many examples of China's shoddy construction work, or better known as tofu dregs, cutting corners to save on cost, and using poor construction materials seems to be a common practice in China. And when I lived there, I actually lived in a tofu dreg. Take a look at this. Can you believe this building was built in the 1990s? It was falling apart. And in the same city where I lived, a new tunnel that was built underwater was supposed to be some marvel of engineering, something to be admired. But on the day it opened, it started leaking water. Now that's scary. Now I'm not going to ramble on and on about tofu dregs, but there are many other stories like mine, and you can find them all over the internet. So go and have yourself a little tofu dreg marathon online, if that's your cup of tea. So to wrap up today's video, I've observed that this guy has clearly been watching too many Jason Lightfoot videos and using the same lame tricks that Lightfoot uses all the time. He fabricates evidence to support his narrative, which might be good enough for his audience, but not good enough if you want to convince people like me. Now, maybe this guy does love the Shanghai subway system, and that's fine. I thought the Shanghai subway system was decent as well when I used it, but he's definitely being misleading with the information, which made me come to the decision to stop watching his video. Besides this, I don't really understand the point he's trying to make. So, Shanghai subway is the best because it's better than 2 other cities in the world with much older subway systems? Does that mean that only China can build shiny new subway systems? What about all of the other countries with subways? I remember being very impressed with the various subway systems I used in Taiwan. They were very clean, well maintained, had disabled access, and had some pretty cool looking futuristic stations. The subway I used in Vancouver was also nice, and the ones in Kyiv and Bangkok and all the other places I've been to. They're also decent subways, fairly modern looking, fairly new. And yes, London's underground system is old, it is used, and it could do with some renovation in some areas. But at the end of the day, it's reliable and it's been serving the people of London for the last century. And I feel much safer riding it than I ever did riding a subway in China. This shill has been busted.
The province of Taiwan, the province of Taiwan, the province of Taiwan, the province of Taiwan.